Gibbles and Bits and Ian here with you, and we're going to be going over some of our hot takes from the new Inklands set that just dropped for Lorcana. We've had a full almost week at this point to play through some of the new content, both digitally on Pixelborn and building our decks on Dreamborn, where we'd build most of our stuff anyway, and then playing in a couple events in our respective local game communities as well, which has been really fun. So we feel like we've gotten the taste of what it might be like in the new meta on some of these new cards, and we've got some opinions, and we have to see if the other person thinks that it's too hot of a take or if they think that it's just right and that they agree with the bold predictions that we're making going forward. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so we're going to go through Ian's hot takes first. He's going to present them to me, and I'm going to have to determine if I think that his hot takes is too hot or if I actually agree with him in this scenario. So let's go ahead and go to the first one. Ian, take us away.
All right, so one of the takes that I derived from the weekend after playing not just in the initial limited format draft events and stuff like that, but also some of the discussions I heard from people and some of the experiences I had playing both with and against locations. Here's my take, man. Locations are so strong and so hard to bring down with just high health early in the game that if you want a shot at taking out a location deck or a deck that uses some really strong locations, right, like RLS Legacy or Fang or some of even the ones that aren't here, you basically have to include some sort of attack buff as a respect tech option, or you're going to get run down by locations.
All right. So my response to that take is I'm going to go ahead and label that just right. I actually very much agree with you. And I gave this opinion to several of my local game community friends when we were discussing locations after having played with them in some of the early events. Now, not every deck includes locations. Most might include one, and it's some of them are it's like a centerpiece of a deck type. Others, it's just as a filler, or most of the locations are inkable, so they're good kind of fillers in a deck to be able to make sure that you have something to play on a turn, especially on turn one with some of the more basic locations. But I do agree with you, and I think the longer you ignore a location, the harder it is to take down, because now you're dealing with other bigger threats on the board, and rarely are you going to have the ink and or the time to or resources to be able to deal with a location and deal with the probably bigger threat of whatever unit they have on board at the same time. So I do think that it is important that you have some sort of attack buffs. Now, that can look in a lot of different ways. There are one of my favorite things about locations is that it's brought validity to the challenge, the plus challenge units, where they get a certain amount of attack bonus when they challenge. I think that those were previously kind of underwhelming and not really utilized within the first chapter and Rise of the Floodborn, but they have a lot more validity now with the Inkland set coming through and locations just needing to be kind of swept off the board quickly before they can build up steam. I think the support keyword also is another avenue in which you can provide an attack buff to another unit to take on locations, but yeah, you don't want 2 or 3 or 4 locations building up on your opponent's board. And there are decks that are completely centered around overwhelming you with locations to more than you can handle. So
it's basically you have to play one. I feel like you have to have an answer for locations, or you're not playing a legitimately competitive deck.
You have to have something, because especially when you don't know what your opponent's playing, if you don't have any sort of attack buff unit and your opponent's running a locations unit, I mean, GG. Like, you're probably not going to be able to deal with it very well. You have to outrace them. So odds are I would agree with that. You are going to need some sort of attack buff unit or units in your deck. All right, next one.
All right, so hear me out. Pirates, pretty dang good. Grammatala, ramp, interesting. Jafar combo, Beast OTK, all of these things are pretty cool. But Amber Swarm decks, led by Pongo Perdita and Pluto and whatever the Lucky, okay? These Amber Swarm decks are going to eventually prove that they are the best new archetype in the set, full stop.
I I don't want to fully disagree with you here because I don't think that that's valid. I think that there is a lot of validity to Amber decks being crucial to the what's going to be the most effective aggressive archetype. What I don't know yet is, are Amber decks more potent with Pongo, Perdita, Pluto, and all of that than some of the bounce package and Arthur in Amethyst? But here's the other caveat: you don't have to run them separately. You can run them both, and then even from
so to be clear, the take that I don't you need to decide if it's an overreaction or not is not the best the best deck, the best new archetype. So an archetype just introduced in this set that a deck didn't exist before. Beast OTK, Jafar,
I see.
the Pirates, they didn't exist before. My opinion is that all of those are pretty good, but Amber Swarm's
the best new aggro archetype is going to be the Amber Swarm. Yeah, I agree with that. I do. Between Pongo on one, or sorry, Pluto on one,
yeah,
where he can tap himself in order to discount a unit, getting a 3-drop out. You can get Pongo out on turn 2, and you can keep him readied and continue to search and pull things back or pull things off the top of your deck into your hand. Perdita constantly pulling bodyguards back out for free onto the field to protect the rest of your units. The 3-drop from the 3-drop bodyguard that allows you to gain to it's not Little John, the bear, the 3-drop bear.
John. Yes.
Oh, is it Little John? Yeah. So Little
That's
John
Steel,
Brunderwald, or what? No. The 3-drop.
Oh, Baloo. Baloo.
Yeah, Baloo. I was like, I know it's not Little John, but it's another animal creature of some sort.
The Baloo from Tailspin.
Yeah, Brunderwald or whatever it is, Brunderwald the 8th.
Whatever. That's not
so
correct, but yeah.
Baloo, the bodyguard that when he's killed gains you 2 lore. Like, that's fantastic. Piglet. And that's also another aggro tool that's new to Amber in this set. I just don't see any other deck going as wide or as fast as Amber Swarm.
So yeah, but okay, let me up the ante then. Do you think, to be clear, you agree with me that this is going to be better than Jafar combo, better than Beast OTK, better than Pirates? Because that's what I think. I think of all the new archetypes, this is going to be the best one.
I do, and it's from my take on why is I did get to play some of my Aquamarines deck against Jafar OTK, and it's fantastic against it. Why? Because you play a bunch of things out on board that all want to combo off of themselves, going really wide. Your opponent finally gets Jafar down and plays a whole new world, refills their hand and gains 7 lore in the process, or however many lore. You refill your own hand and continue to go wider, and you're going to kill your opponent within the next turn or two, because those decks aren't really built to deal with that wide a board. They want to deal with 1 or 2 units until they can get out their big combo. I just think this deck is too fast and it refills too quickly. So yeah, I do think that this will easily outrace a lot of the control decks.
All I'm hearing is that all my takes are great. Let's see if this one does it for you.
Let's see if your last one hits.
All right. Ruby Amethyst Control is still the most versatile deck. It can handle locations. It can handle evasive. It can draw cards. It has removal. Thus, it is probably just the best deck in format once again.
I think it is. I'm going to agree with you on half of it. I think your hot take that it is the most versatile is true, because it does have such a flexible early game with the bounce package and a lot of different play paths on what you ink, what you don't, do you try to trick trades? Do you try to trade with spells or actions, I guess I should say, like Teeth and Ambitions? Like you've got, or do you just try to ramp into drawing cards and get your late game out? Like, and then your late game is also relatively versatile up until the decision point of when do I be prepared. But I do think that is the most versatile deck. I don't know if I'm going to agree that it's going to be the best in format still. I have a hard time feeling like the Ruby Amethyst control deck is going to be upgraded a whole lot. I
I
can
don't know, man.
see.
Queen's Castle and John Silver and RLS Legacy, that package is hot.
Yes, it's the Jim Hawkins that I think is going to be the biggest upgrade for that deck and the RLS Legacy. Um, I just don't know if I'm ready to say that it's going to be best deck in format yet.
Okay.
I see a lot that, like we talked about. Like I think we were in such a control meta before that this was easily the best control deck. Therefore, it was the best deck in format. But I think Inklands opened up a lot of different speeds in decks and where they can get to their win condition. That I think you can kind of catch your opponent by you can go faster than your opponent can answer in other decks like some of the OTK decks that are now available and the aggro deck. So I just don't know if this is going to be dominant like we've seen in the past. And for the love of God, I hope it's not. I really hope it's not.
All right.
All right, on to my hot takes that you have to respond to. First one for me is songs have become so convenient, and there's a plethora of them to cast, that there are very few regular actions that are worth playing anymore in decks.
Um.
The nice part about this whole segment with us
Yeah.
doing our hot takes is that Ian has not seen any of my hot takes. I
No,
got
I
to
haven't.
briefly see his because I had to put together the slideshow. So therefore I couldn't really ignore all of the words in my brain, but I tried to not think
Sure.
about them. He has never seen these
No,
before.
I have not. I'm actually going to go overreaction.
Okay.
I think this take is too hot. And I think the reason this take is too hot is one of the cards you chose to put on here, which is the Bare Necessities, and also Ursula Deceiver. I think those two are the things that are stopping this from being true. The reality is I'm already looking at seeing there are certain decks. I think Steel Song is going to have so many songs that it won't really matter. They also have ways to dig for songs that, like, I think that deck will still be fine. But I think that Ursula, and we've already seen some early tournament reports and decks come in where Emerald has topped both of the events, the big-ish events that have happened in this last week, and that is because Ursula is in them. Like, I just truly think that that's what it is, right? And so I think we're going to see a transition. I think people are going to play some more cards like Dragonfire. I think might find its way back into a deck or two. I think Baboom is going to be in some decks. I think Smash is going to be in a lot of decks as well for Steel. I think the decks that get hurt the most by Bare Necessities and Ursula is actually Emerald decks or not Emerald, sorry, Sapphire decks, because their best removal is Let It Go, which happens to be a song. But I actually saw a list or two running around with, believe it or not, Launch being played.
Yep, just to get around that.
So just to get around. So I think this is too hot of a take. I think there are some less efficient options that are more, Ursula proof, that I think this is going to become. I think we may actually see a very ever so slight decline in some of those big actions like Be Prepared. I saw a list that got second in event that only ran 3 Be Prepared. Wow.
It's funny because Bare Necessities is a powerful song,
Yeah.
proving the point, and also a great argument against it as well,
Yeah.
because it counters songs. So
Exactly.
it's funny that they like printed song removal with songs.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're running songs and your opponent's not, then you're in great shape.
Well, and Bare Necessities removes any action, and any non-character, but Ursula
Sure, but
specifically is
Deceiver
just too
specifically says
efficient.
songs.
And frankly, the things you're looking to discard off of Bare Necessities are those game warping songs. So it's like, if somebody looks at your hand and sees a Baboom, they may not dish it. But if they look at your hand and they see and Along Came Zeus, they're probably dishing it because they know you can play it for free. So,
Or just your card draw.
Yeah, I think that there is I think we're going to see a lot of decks try to do the whole new world loop. There's so many more synergies with it, and I think that that's why green decks are going to succeed a lot in the early days of this meta, and I think we'll see the meta eventually. Those whole new world decks are going to decline for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So overreaction, but I understand where you're coming from.
Second hot take: with the strength of the recently released Emerald cards, Sapphire is now the weakest competitive color.
I think this is an extremely fair take. I've been feeling this myself. I don't think I look okay. Surface level, I don't think Sapphire got any obviously great new cards. Like, I think they got some interesting cards. I think that there remains the potential for a Grammatala combo deck to be really, really good once somebody figures it out and breaks it, right? I think that there exists potential for, even maybe even an item Lucky Dime combo thing to happen. But truthfully, I think the lack of Sapphire's lack of removal, their lack of evasive counters outside of Corella Deville, their lack of location removal because they have almost no attack stat and no attack buffing and no direct location damaging or removal. I think Sapphire is now the weakest competitive color by a mile. And I think Emerald has leapt to, if not the top, then close to the top. So Emerald got transformed overnight, and Sapphire, which I don't think was ever a top 3 color, is probably the biggest loser from the fact that they're like, let's do the whole cool, fancy, expensive item thing. And it's a gimmick. The gimmick might work out eventually, but like popsicles are still the best way to play Emerald for now. And following that, probably some sort of ward aggro deck, and that's it.
Yeah, ward and items with Popsicle were kind of the two decks that made their way into the top 5 or top 6-ish, depending on when you're looking at within the meta from last season. There was that Steel Sapphire deck with ward, and then
and look, I stand by that
Sapphire.
That deck could not exist in a faster meta. Like,
and I think I stand
by Wheel Ramp being a and I know this is an unpopular opinion that a lot of people are going to laugh at, and I don't care. I think Steel Sapphire Wheel Ramp was a aberration. I think it was phony. Like, it was good only because of the prevalence of Ruby Amethyst control, and how greedy that was. Like,
it was really easy to shut down too.
I played so many different aggro decks that stomped that wheel ramp list, and maybe that wheel ramp list gets lower to the ground now, and maybe they can actually succeed at that. But like, again, it's just, I think Sapphire is going to struggle. So I agree.
All right. Last one. The top cards from Into the Inklands aren't more powerful than the previous 2 sets. We just have a bigger card pool now to pair them with. And I want to preface this with, if you look at a card like Tinkerbell Giant Fairy or Elsa Spirit of Winter, what would it feel like if these were cards that came out now as a part of the Into the Inklands set? How would we feel about them?
Let me rephrase your take. Like, tell me what your take is, and I'll respond to that. I think I understand what you're saying.
It's exactly what that is if you swapped the positions of the legendaries or some of the top chase cards, because they don't even all have to be legendaries, but if you were swapped some of the top chase cards from the first chapter or from Floodborn with those that are Into the Inklands, and we had those of the Into the Inklands cards earlier, would you feel like any different? Like, it doesn't feel like the top chase cards from the previous 2 chapters, first chapter and Floodborn, are any better or any worse than the top chase cards from Inklands?
Okay. I think I don't know how to handle this, because the reality is that if we take what I think are the strongest legendaries from this set, right? Which are Ursula and Jim Hawkins. And then a second tier below that would be Robin Hood and Jafar, right? And those are the sort of 4 really, really pricey legendaries right now. I think that Ursula is on par with Beast. I think it's on par with like Rapunzel in terms of like chase legendary status, right? Um, I agree. I agree that they're not like, I don't think power creep has gotten super, super, super bad with this set. I've seen some people screaming power creep off a mountain. I don't think it's actually power creep. I think it's the increased card pool. So I guess I have to agree with you. My only thing is, I think Ursula specifically and Jim Hawkins specifically are maybe like another level good. Like,
Yeah,
I think
and
that
that's
they are,
fine.
but here's the thing, to be, and the only reason I didn't reject your take is because if we took Ursula and put Ursula in set 1, Ursula would not be as good because there's less songs to sing. Okay. But I will say, I don't think Elsa would be that big of a deal. Actually, I genuinely don't. I think if you made Elsa in set 3, I think it would be cheaper than it is. Like,
Well, and
I
arguably,
think its price is inflated right now because of its status of like, oh, this is a valuable card from set 1. I think that has made its price overly inflated in the reality of set 3, where I don't think there's going to be more than 1 or 2 decks that even consider playing it, and never at more than like 2 copies. Um,
well, and Elsa's replaceable in this argument by whatever you value as the top couple cards
Rapunzel.
within the first chapter. Rapunzel, Tinkerbell,
But
whatever you
Tinkerbell is
view.
interesting because I think we have to look at Tinkerbell as like, I mean, it's not a legendary. It's not really a chase card in the same way. You know what I mean?
Maleficent Dragon.
Maleficent Dragon. Yeah. And that's actually an argument that I would take and say that is proving that the new legendaries are better. I think here's what I'll say. I think if we look at it just by legendaries, I think Inklands has stronger legendaries than either of those 2 sets in on average. I think they have a higher, if we were to like give every single legendary from every single set a star rating, I think Into the Inklands would have a higher star rating than either of the other 2 sets. Okay. But I don't think that the gap between the top legendary from Inklands and the top legendary from the Floodborn, the top legendary from first chapter, I don't think that is particularly far apart.
And I think that's kind of the point here, right? Is due to a bigger card pool, something like the Jafar legendary or Ursula
Yeah,
wouldn't feel as impactful as a part of the first chapter as they do now, because we have all of the cards that you can combo with, and there's more availability to like make a better card in accompanying in a deck.
It's an interesting argument. I think Ursula, if Ursula was in first chapter, wouldn't have been played much until this set. I think that, and I need to think about it more, but that's just my gut react. It would definitely be played because Friends on the Other Side exists, right? And that was first chapter. Okay, it would definitely be played, but it's significantly better now that, Storm Rage On and set 2 would have made it even better, right? And, we've got Bare Necessities now, which is going to make it even better if they would play Amber and Emerald. And so there's a lot more options for Ursula, which makes her a card that scales with each set. Okay. Beast is standalone good. But I will say, I think that if Jafar had been in the first chapter, that would have broken the game. Because if Jafar with Whole New World was available in the first set, that would have been the best deck in format. I don't think, you know what I mean?
Those 2 cards in particular together, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a fun conversation, but I guess I'm forced to agree with the spirit of your discussion, which is that power creep, at least I think I'm getting I think I'm understanding where you're going with this, which is that power creep is not as bad as a lot of people are saying it is. And then in fact, it's just natural power increase when we have a larger card pool. So sure, I'll
The
give this.
power of decks as a whole increase with the more cards you have to evaluate and decide to put what to put in them.
Yeah, look,
That's just the nature of card games.
I just built a fun Emerald Amethyst broom deck that I played at League, and that broom deck would have stomped pretty much everything in like a first chapter meta. But also it didn't, it like barely eked out wins against a lot of, you know, decks that were less refined in this meta. It's just the entire card, the entire strength of decks in aggregate is going up. And that's just how it goes until we hit enough sets where they do a rotation of cards. That's just going to be how it is.
Agreed. I think we're going to see. I think it'll change across the course of the set, but yeah, I just don't think that there's the power creep that everyone is afraid is going to exist because it has in so many other games.
Yeah,
At least not at this point.
Power creep in cards is different from power creep when you're building sets and adding to the entire total card pool. They're different things.
Yeah. All right, that does it for our hot takes episode of Lorcana. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any hot takes for us that you want us to comment on, similar to how we did for each other, feel free to drop those comments in our Lorcana chat on the Discord. Come join us on YouTube for all the rest of our Lorcana content and the other games that we're making, like Pokemon. We've got Curry making Pokemon content. We've got Star Wars content coming out. We just announced, if you're hearing this before or after, I apologize, our previous starter set episode that's coming out this week. We will be doing the Star Wars TCG coming up in the month of March. So we're very excited about that. We'll have a lot of videos relating to that content coming out. So check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. Come follow us on Discord, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.